Hi guys, welcome. My name's Amanda. So for our little class today, we're going to be focusing a lot on our hips. So as we really get into the hips, we'll start to have a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings come up, and just know that that's normal. The hips are almost like a little storage house for built up emotions. So as we work through these, things will start to release, and just be patient with yourself. Just allow yourself to experience whatever you're experiencing. So we'll start lying on our backs. So coming to a comfortable position, finding yourself in a Shavasana. And really taking up some room here on your mat. Taking the legs out nice and wide. The arms are nice and wide. And starting to feel the weight of your body sinking into the ground. Noticing these points where the ground meets your body, the heels, your sit bones, the shoulder blades, the elbows, the hands, and the back of the head. Notice the support you feel here. Allowing the body to completely relax. Maybe setting an intention here for your practice. Whatever naturally comes to mind. Starting to notice the breath, this natural rhythm. Now, without trying to change the breath, just becoming aware of how the body naturally breathes. Noticing where in your body you feel expansion on each inhale. And notice where the body starts to soften on every exhale. Continuing to watch this natural breath. Allowing every thought to be here, every emotion. As we move through our practice today, these emotions will naturally release as we make some space in the body. And I really love this quote from Jack Kornfield. He says, "To let go does not mean to get rid of. To let go means to let be. When we let be with compassion, things come and go naturally on their own." So just letting any emotions, any thoughts, just be. They'll naturally release on their own. Now let's start to move to our first position. This will be a Recline Butterfly. So taking your feet to the mat, knees are pointed up, and we'll bring the feet together, and then just allow the knees to softly drop out to the sides. And just letting everything go here, surrendering to the mat. Noticing the softness in through your back, in through your head and neck, the softness in the face. The hands are soft. And noticing the hips starting to soften, starting to release. Maybe the knees start to fall a little bit more towards the floor. And then let's just find another 3 full breaths here. Now let's start to take the knees back up towards the ceiling. And this time we'll take the feet about mat width apart and then just allow the knees to tent in together. So just finding some softness, noticing how the hips feel as they're in the opposite direction. Now let's start to bring the knees towards the chest. Give your knees a little squeeze. And then we'll start to make little circles with our knees. So again, starting to loosen up the hips. We'll start to draw these circles in one direction. And then let's start to move in the opposite direction with our circles. And these circles can be as large or as small as you like. Now let's take the feet back to the floor. And we'll take the feet about mat width apart. Take your hands, interlace the fingers, and place the hands behind your head. Now we'll start to warm up the spine a little bit. We'll start to take a cat-cow motion in this supine position, so this position lying down. So we'll be mostly moving the low back, the pelvis. Now on your inhale, start to arch the spine, pressing your sit bones into the mat. And then as you exhale, start to tuck the tailbone, pressing the back into the mat. And we'll keep going here. So inhale, pressing the sit bones in the mat. The back will have a slight arch away from the mat. And then as you exhale, starting to curl the tailbone, pressing the low back, that sacrum area, against the mat. So pretty subtle movement here, but starting to work our core, starting to release some tension, warming up the spine, even opening the heart. Let's take one more round wherever you're at, and then we'll come back to a neutral position. Now let's take our knees in towards our chest, and then we'll just slowly start to roll to one side. And then when you're ready, we'll gently start to make our way up into a tabletop position. So from our tabletop position, let's start to set up our mat. We're going to be taking a child's pose and then a frog pose. So I like to set up facing the long edge of the mat. And then we'll start to roll each side of our mat. This will be a little cushion for our knees. So rolling the mat in, you can also place little pillows under your knees if you'd rather do that. And then we'll take the knees onto our little rolls, just checking that you're at a width that feels comfortable for your body. And then we'll have the feet together and then just come down into a child's pose. So your elbows might rest on the ground, maybe the forehead rests. Starting to again find some space into our hips. And starting to become aware if there's any gripping. See if you can just release any tension, maybe in the shoulders, maybe in through the face. Now you can stay just as you are here, or maybe you start to take the feet out, moving into this frog position. So if you're moving to frog, the ankles will be in line with the knee. And we'll just start to drop the hips. So you're in charge of the sensation here. So you can always lean forward a little bit to take a break, or you can start to lean back to really deepen this release. Again, always checking in with your body, making sure you're not in any pain. And let's stay here for another 3 breaths. Now, as we release from this pose, we'll start exactly how we came in. So just walking the feet back in if they were out. And then we'll gently start to walk our hands up, taking one knee off the mat, then the other off that little roll, unrolling the mat, bring the knees together, and then we'll take a child's pose over our knees. So just allowing the spine to round here, arms will come back. Taking some nice full breaths, really filling the back of the body. Let's stay here for one more breath. And then let's start to turn back to the short edge of our mat. So setting up our tabletop here again. So we've got our shoulders stacked right over top of the wrists, and our knees are just under the hips. Now let's start to move towards a low lunge. So we'll step first with our right foot between the hands. You might lift that right hand. So just setting our legs up here. We want to have our right knee on top of that right ankle. And your hands can be on the ground here, or maybe the hands come to the thigh. Maybe the arms even reach all the way up. Taking full breaths here. Really using this breath to anchor you. Let's find one more breath. And then on your exhale, take the hands down to the mat, and we'll start to send the hips back, moving to a half splits. So we're working on straightening this front leg. And know that it's okay if there's a bit of a bend in the knee. As long as you're feeling this stretch in the hamstring, in through the calf, then you're doing this perfectly. Staying here for one more breath. And then let's let's start to move back to that low lunge. This time we're going to move to a lizard lunge. So we'll start to walk this right foot out. So walking it all the way out to the edge of the mat. Our right hand will come on the inside of the leg, and our right heel's on the mat, toes are off. So we have a nice straight line for our knee to go into. And then you'll just stay right here. Maybe you start to lower down to one elbow, or maybe you come down to both elbows. And you might even notice that you roll to the outer edge of this right foot, and the knee might even start to roll out as well. So just starting to make a little bit more room for yourself. So letting go of any expectations you might have for this pose. Just being here, allowing this pose to work for you and your body. Find one more breath here. And then let's gently start to walk our hands back up if you are on your elbows. And then we'll start to walk that right foot back in between the hands, and then step that foot back, come back to a tabletop position. Now let's move to the next side. So stepping our left foot between the hands. And again, just adjusting yourself so that that left knee is stacked above the ankle. Hands might stay on the mat, maybe on blocks. Maybe the hands come to your thighs or your hip. Maybe you reach all the way up. If your arms are lifted, just gently bringing the shoulders down away from the ears. Heart is lifted, heart is open. Let's find one more breath here. And then on your exhale, take the hands down to the mat. And again, we'll send those hips back, moving to a half splits. And you might notice each leg is a little bit different. That's completely normal. So again, let go of any judgment. Finding one more breath here. And then on your next inhale, let's start to move forward. And then we'll move towards that lizard lunge again. So this time walking our left foot out to the side of the mat. Left hand will come to the inside of that leg. And then turning the toes out. So heels on the mat, toes are pointed out to the left. And then you might just stay here. You might start to take one elbow down to the mat, or maybe both. And again, you might even roll to the outer edge of this left foot, creating a little bit more space for the hips. And just surrendering here to the mat, to this pose. Allowing again whatever emotion is present to just be here. It'll eventually just release on its own. Finding one more full breath here. And now taking the hands, walking the hands back up, and then gently start to walk that left foot back in between the hands. And then let's step that foot back into a tabletop position. Now from our tabletop, let's just cross the ankles and we'll sit back. So coming to a seated position. If you'd like to find another way to a seated position, no problem. We'll just meet in a staff pose. So in our staff pose, sitting nice and tall, you might even sit on a pillow here. Now let's take an inhale, sweep the arms up, and then let's take a forward fold. So keeping this pose active at first, so really lifting through the heart, through the chest. You might be right here and that's perfect. Feeling a nice straight spine. Finding one more breath like this. And then we'll start to allow the spine to curl. Just really falling forward, letting the body go. Finding one more breath here. And then let's start to roll ourselves back up. So from here, we'll move to a straddle position. So just taking the legs out nice and wide. So coming to a width that makes sense for your body. You can take the hands behind you and just start to press the hips, the heart forward. You might stay here. The knees can also have a little bit of a bend in them if that feels a bit better. Or you can slowly start to lower yourself forward. We're really working into this inner leg line, the adductors. So noticing where you can soften, maybe in through the face, maybe the toes are gripping. See if you can just let go. Know that the ground is here to support you. And use this breath. This is your anchor. Coming back to this breath. Maybe using this breath and sending this breath to the hips. Allowing a little bit more space. Finding one more breath here. And then let's start to come on up. And we'll take the legs back together. And then let's start to take a twist. So hug your left knee in towards your chest, and then we'll step that left foot over top of the right leg, and then we'll take a twist, moving our body towards this knee. So left hand will come behind you, and you might hold on to the knee. That arm might come in front of the knee. Just sitting up nice and tall. Finding one more breath here. And then coming back through center, taking a counter twist. So just twisting to the other side. Come back to center, release that left leg, and then we'll start to move to the right leg. So bending that right knee in towards your chest, step that right foot over the left leg, and then we'll take a twist again, turning our body towards the right, towards this knee. Right hand comes to the mat, that left hand might stay on the knee, or you might even take that arm in front of the knee. Again, really staying lifted through the collarbones. Finding one more breath here. And then starting to move back through center, taking this counter twist. So twisting the opposite way, coming through center. And then we'll release the legs. Let's take a bit of a bend in through the knees. So taking our feet to the mat, and we'll slowly lower ourselves down, counting to 5. So just taking a little bit of core work. Take the arms out. 5. 4, slowly lowering, 3, 2, and 1. Now let's start to set up for a figure 4 position. Let's take our right ankle across the left thigh. You might stay here. You might just press this right knee away from you, or you might start to bring the legs in towards you. Just make sure you're flexing that right foot, helping to keep that knee nice and safe. And again, using this breath to anchor you as we release this right hip. Staying here for another 3 breaths. Letting it go. Now let's start to release that leg. Take the right foot down and let's move to the other side. So left ankle crosses over top of our right thigh this time. Flex that left foot. And again, you might just stay here. You might press that left knee away from you, or you might start to take the knees in towards the chest. Maybe sending some love to that left hip, using your breath. Let's stay here for another 2 full breaths. Now gently start to release the legs. We'll squeeze the knees into our chest. And then let's take one final pose, happy baby. So starting to take the feet towards the ceiling. And then we'll either grab onto our shins or our ankles, maybe even on the outer edge of the feet. And then we'll start to draw those knees towards the floor. Seeing if you can keep the low back glued to the mat. You might stay in this stillness, or you might rock side to side. You might even straighten one leg, straighten the other leg. Whatever intuitive movement comes to you. Finding one more breath here. And then we'll gently start to release the legs. Taking the feet to the mat, and then we'll start to stretch out for our Shavasana. So taking the legs nice and wide again, arms nice and wide. Really just taking up some space here. Allowing the body to rest, to settle. Again, feeling gravity just pulling you in towards the mat. And we'll just stay here for a few moments. Gently start to deepen your breath. Maybe starting to add some movement into the fingers, into the toes, adding a little wiggle. You might even take the head side to side, releasing the neck. Maybe the arms come overhead, taking a nice long stretch. And then bending through the knees, taking the feet to the mat. And gently rolling to one side. Resting here in this fetal position for just a moment. And then as you feel ready, Starting to make your way back up to a seated position. Finding this seated position with the eyes closed just for a moment. Starting to notice how you feel. Maybe even taking some appreciation for this pause, for this time that you've given yourself. You can gently start to blink the eyes open. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Namaste.